sunshine in my soul today, more glorious and bright than closing in earthly sky. For Jesus is the light. There's sunshine, blessed sunshine, where the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there's sunshine in my soul.
John Jones has been an inspiration to so many folks in the Church of the Brethren and the local community. He was a volunteer worker in Brethren Volunteer Service in Northern Ireland during very troubling times. He and his wife Margaret served at Camp Myrtlewood in Oregon as camp managers for 3 decades. John has been both friends with environmentalists and those who see the forest as a resource to be farmed. Hello, I'm Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. Today we have John Jones with us for some fun conversation. But John will also share some concerns and his thoughts about life in the year 2024. John Jones, welcome to Brethren Voices.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. It's
Thank
a double handshake this morning. That's
thank
great.
you.
What are your thoughts as we begin this conversation?
Well, I am really happy to just be with you guys again. It just feels really good to be here in Portland area and stay with the Groffs last night. That was beautiful. My only regret is that I wish my wife Margaret were here. She's on a retreat with my daughter Rachel, who's now in her very early 40s, so it's just good for the two moms to be together with friends for the weekend. But I'll be thinking of her today, and I'll try to include her, especially when we're talking about things like our Belfast experience, because in many ways we're one person, you know. So we've been together a long time.
How long have you been married?
Well, we were married in 1977 in February the 25th, so it was 47 years this last anniversary.
Wow.
And we were together a couple years before that. But we're coming up on 50 official years here pretty soon, and
that's amazing.
You know how old geezers get when they've been together that long. We're kind of funny sometimes.
John, for our July program, we interviewed 16 youth from Manchester Church of the Brethren in Indiana, and they shared their thoughts about what it's like to be a young person in 2024. And today I'd like to discuss what it's like to be a person in their 70s in this chaotic age of 2024.
Well, I might begin just by saying that I am in my 70s. I turned 73 this last March.
That's why we picked you for the interview.
And I was was born on the 15th of March, the Ides of March, and Shakespeare's play of Julius Caesar says, "Beware the Ides of March." So I always joke with people, when you're around me, just watch out, because I came around on the Ides of March. But it feels really good to be 73 when I consider the alternatives. It's not that I don't have aging kinds of changes that I'm aware of, and sometimes I'm grasping for words, simple words sometimes. What do you call that again? Oh yeah, fish, that kind of thing. But I'm just happier than the dickens to be alive and to be able to love people and be loved by people. And as I grow older, I'm kind of thinking that's really what it boils down to, is loving and being loved. And I just want to do as much of that as I can for as long as possible. And I'm not afraid of, leaving this old earth kind of idea. But while I'm here, I want to do the best I can.
Next question. John, you're 73 years old and you look good. What do you do to stay young?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there's physical things, of course, but there's spiritual things. I got one that is both for me. I've always loved swimming in wild rivers or lakes, but real water, natural water. That's something I've just always loved. And back in 2017, I came close to dying. I had an internal bleeding situation. There was emergency surgery involved, and it was a long recovery. And I decided that I had two goals. One was to swim in a wild river again. I really wanted to get well enough to where I could do that again. And the other was I wanted to be able to run again, because at that time I wasn't real sure I'd even be able to walk again. Wow. So it's always been so important to me. And now that I'm older, I haven't swam in a wild river, really nice wild river, for a while now, a couple of years like, but I changed my irrigation down in the creek. Closest thing I've been doing lately is I go down there in the creek and I work with the pump, you know, with the foot valve for the pump for the irrigation.
In the water?
In the water. And the crawdads are there when I'm down there, and sometimes I see kingfishers or maybe a beaver, or sometimes close encounters with beavers, that kind of thing. And that's pretty close. It's not quite swimming in a wild stream or a mountain lake, but you know, it's a good thing. So I would say, in a broader answer to that question, I try to maintain connections to nature. I do silly things. My neighbors probably think, there's that silly old man over there talking to ravens again, or, you know, talking to the pileated woodpeckers, you know, because I do. I see it's a way for me to take notice and to actually say hello, good morning, how you doing? And it might seem silly to some, but to me, it's the kind of thing I used to do when I was a kid. I used to walk with my face right up to the rain so the rain could fall right into my face. I remember doing that. Wow. And in a way, that's a physical thing, but it's also a spiritual thing. So that's one of the things I do to stay young. And then, you know that old Beatles song we were visiting about a little while ago? Life is short, and there's no time for fussing or fighting, my friend. That makes more and more sense. You know, I used to listen to tunes like that when I was a teenager or, you know, young adult, and they were cool. But now, you know, that I'm seeing the real philosophical wisdom of some of those lines out of some of those old songs.
John, you served in Brethren Volunteer Service in Northern Ireland during the 70s, during a time when there were many concerns and chaos and lots of troubling and fighting. You met your wife and you were married in Northern Ireland. What led you to go to Northern Ireland, and what was it like in the 1970s?
Well, in 1973, I graduated from the University of Oregon in communications. I was planning on being a high school teacher, basically a speech teacher, you know, have a speech team type of thing that I would go to contests with and, you know, teach kids communication skills. But other factors came in. I didn't go right into teaching right away. I worked various jobs here in Oregon for about a year. I worked unloading fishing boats down in Charleston. I worked in a steel fabrication shop for a year with, you know, journeyman welders and pipe fitters and folks, and I was thinking of joining the pipe fitters union, and the guys in the pipe fitters really wanted me to join them. And I thought, well, that's great. You know, pipe fitters are great guys and good work, good honest kind of work, and a union, and, you know, values I had. And then I thought, but I just finished my college degree. I haven't used that yet, you know. So I started thinking of Ireland because I had an interest in Irish history, and I was pretty up on what was going on over there with the Troubles. And I really didn't plan to go to Belfast. I figured they had enough troubles without me, but I wanted to go to Ireland, and I kind of had a notion of getting a job on a fishing boat and learning how to be a fisherman for one, and helping fishermen do their job. And I actually met some fishermen in the west of Ireland. At that time, I was a young hippie guy hitchhiking around, and by happenstance, I look at it now as kind of by grace, I ended up in Belfast, and I won't go a long story there, but it was 1974, November. Margaret had been there since summer, and she had come over from Switzerland. I hadn't been sent there by BVS. I didn't know about the Brethren at that time in my life. I had been a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. I met Brethren volunteers there, and I got a teaching job there. I was actually a school teacher for a while. And then one thing led to the next. I ended up moving out of the Protestant working class ghetto community named the Schenkel Road, where Margaret lived, after several months, and I moved up into a Catholic area that was more of a Republican neighborhood with IRA kind of influences, whereas in the Schenkel it had been UVF and UDA Protestant loyalist paramilitaries that lived there. So, you know, the whole experience of living in a community where the social fabric of civil society, you know, was torn apart was a real awakening for me. And yet in the midst of all that separation and anguish and violence, I mean, it was a violent kind of situation for sure. And families, most all families had suffered in some way. They'd lost an immediate member of their family, or an uncle or a cousin, or, you know, brother or a sister, or somebody blown up in a bomb, or, you know, just everybody in these working class communities that we lived in had been touched by the violence, because it had been going on for 5 years by that time. But in the midst of all that, there was this incredible community that we were part of. And the gift of those people, Margaret and I have said many times, their gift to us was, this is what community is. And we can talk more about that later.
Was there much sharing between the Protestant and the Catholic communities, or was just one or the other?
Well, by that time, there had been lots of separation. You know, at one time, the community I lived in, the Ligonier community, had been quite integrated. But by the time I lived in, it was almost all Catholics. Most of the Protestant people had moved out because they were uncomfortable, or in some cases had been forced out. In Protestant communities like the Schenkel Road, all the Catholics, I mean, there were no Catholics that lived in the Schenkel at that time that I was aware of. There were families that were intermarried. There was a family right across the street from Margaret's Agnes Street Community Center that was run by the local ministerial association. That lady and her family, she had a couple of sons who were married to Catholic women, and she had Catholic Protestant grandkids, and, you know, there were those kind of stories. It wasn't a simple case of just all the Protestants here and all the Catholics here, but for a large degree, there was a terrible separation and of civil society, and people forgetting who their neighbor was. Wow, it was not good. And yet, in these situations where people are living on the brink, so to speak, and where they know the tenuousness of life, that it could end any moment, they have a tendency to live very fully. And there's oftentimes lots of joy. I saw that in South Sudan when I was there a couple different times. That it's when people are under that type of stress, they kind of realize this day is really blessed. You know, I'm really lucky to be alive, and I'm going to live fully. And so the joy was also there.
Do you have a message to share with people about Brethren Volunteer Service and how much it meant to you, whether you're young or old? Is it a good program?
I just had a conversation with a young man who's 20, going into college, wants to be engineer. I mean, he's very bright, very, very bright young man. And what I told him was, hey, give some thought when you finish college, or maybe even a break time where you think you need a break in between college, or just give some thought to Brethren Volunteer Service. It's an organization that is open to open-hearted people. You don't have to be brethren, you don't have to be Christian. You have to be a person who has an open heart and wants to serve others. And what I'd say that I think the key thing is, no matter how much you think you might be able to give somebody else or help somebody else or do good, you're going to get back so much more you can't believe. You're going to have a gift of life that you will be grateful for the rest of your life, for sure. So I just challenge people to think, in a way it's a selfish thing to serve others because it benefits you so much. But it's not selfish in the sense of, I've got mine and you don't have any of yours kind of idea. It's self-care. It's part of the self-care thing. If we care about ourselves, we also love others, and vice versa.
Now we're going to take a break and hear about Brethren Volunteer Service.
Hi there, my name is Billy Harness. I'm working here at Snowcap Community Charities through BVS. I'm from North Liberty, Indiana, a small farm town on the outskirts of South Bend, Indiana, northern Indiana. So I graduated from Indiana Wesleyan University with a degree in elementary education, and then I went to Holy Cross College as a graduate student and got a graduate certificate in ESL education and played basketball there as well. Here at Snowcap, the type of community we serve here are low-income families and residents, and as well as homeless community. We serve 10,000 families a month alone, just with the food and clothing that we give out. So it's been a real blessing working here, and just meeting the different families that come in and working with the different volunteers here has opened my eyes to a greater perspective on life and what's really important.
Oh, hi there. I'm Lucas, and I participate in the Brethren Volunteer Services over at Snowcap in Portland, Oregon. Over here in this department, we give out clothing to low-income families and just help them out however we can. We have jackets, blankets, baby clothes, whatever the people here need. And why I started this program is because I always wanted to go into the US and do something useful too. So I looked around and I found a German volunteer organization that was cooperating with BVS. So I was really interested and started to look into it. And it just caught my attention how much good BVS did here. So I got more interested and found Snowcap, a place where people can get food and clothes if they cannot afford that. And if you're also interested in this program, you can check it out on our website, www.brethren.org.
Would you say that BVS experience was transformational?
Oh yes, yeah, for sure, yeah, for both Margaret and myself. Yeah, it was so much of who we are today. I can't begin to express how much that formed Margaret and I both.
Okay. John, following your return to the United States, you taught high school in Portland for a while, and then you and Margaret decided to take jobs as managers of Camp Myrtlewood in Southern Oregon. What led to your decision to becoming Camp Myrtlewood managers in a fairly remote area of Oregon? In fact, it's actually 7 miles from a small little town, not even maybe a town, called Remote, Oregon, which I found fascinating, and remote's pretty remote.
Well, the way we came to that was I was teaching at Beaverton High School in the Beaverton School District, and I had gone back to college to get my standardized teaching certification, and I wanted to do it in special education. And so I spent 6 years total with the Beaverton School District, first 2 years as a teaching assistant, and the next 4 years as a teacher. And I had my tenure and all after that time, but I was feeling really drawn to something else, and there were a couple different factors. One was Margaret and I was often away on speech tournaments and things because I was assistant speech coach there at the high school on weekends, and I'd at times be looking out the back window of where my office was, and I'd see ducks flying over the field out there, and I just think, oh, I wish I could just be out watching the ducks. We really felt kind of nature deficit disorder in a sense, although we didn't call it that, but that was what we were feeling, both of us. And we wanted to live somewhere where maybe we could be closer to nature on a more full-time, instead of living for whenever we could get away and go camping, you know. Yeah. And then the other factor was we were war tax resistors. I had been a conscience objector. Living in Belfast had taught us a lot about the importance of you know, being a good neighbor and reconciliation and working for peace. So there were these factors in our life, and we decided we wanted to try to live below a taxable income if possible to avoid paying so much of our taxes for war preparation. Nuclear weapons was a major concern at that time, proliferation of nuclear weapons. So by moving to Camp Myrtlewood, we were able to live below taxable income, and we were able to be closer to nature, and we were able to live in a place where we felt that it would be good for our children. We had a little girl by that time, little tiny gal that was you know, about 2.5 years old by that time. And so we wanted to be somewhere where we weren't so isolated that it wasn't reality. But by being at Camp Myrtlewood, there would be all kinds of different people, all kinds of different interactions for the children, and we just felt it was a healthy place to raise a family. So those were all factors.
John, Camp Myrtlewood is a Church of the Brethren camp in Oregon, but it became the home for so many different user groups under your direction. You and Margaret were instrumental in assisting those things to happen. What made it possible for you to invite so many different user groups, including Native American groups, to Camp Myrtlewood?
Well, the camp had existed for long years before we came there. We went to camp in 1983. We left, we were there on the 1st of September, 83, and we left on the 31st of August in 2013. So we were there exactly 30 years to the day, so to speak. But there had been all kinds of wonderful community and spiritual renewal and outdoor education going on at camp for years before that. Camp started in 1935-36. Next year we'll celebrate our 90th anniversary. During that time there were all kinds of school groups, organizations like 4-H and other youth organizations, family reunions, church groups, other religious groups other than Christian denominations, but lots of different Christian denominations. It's always been a real ecumenical place where all people were welcome, regardless of your race, your ethnic background, your religion, your sexual orientation. It's always been a place where people were welcomed and that they knew that this was a safe place for them. That we really emphasized that in our ministry at camp. And it's always been a place too where people were encouraged to have contact with nature and to be one with nature and renew their relationship. And we always thought of community there at camp as, community first and foremost, with your maker or with your concept of the sacred, and also with one another, but also with nature, and that kind of triad of community is what we always emphasized. And we always used Henry Nouwen, the Catholic theologian's perspective of peacemaking is first and foremost a Christian hospitality concept that involves the creation of a peaceful space where the stranger can come and become a friend, and where people can change. And the purpose of Christian hospitality is not to change people. That's not the point. The purpose of Christian hospitality is to create a space where change can take place.
You also made an effort to be in relationship with some of the local Native American tribes. Can you explain how you did that and how you enhanced and embellished what already existed? Well,
there were lots of different factors. When we first came to camp, the Coquel tribe, the local tribe, had an Indian Ed camp going on that was cultural education for their young people, talking about traditional ways and what have you. And it was just in the very beginning stages of development, and it had been there one summer, and when we came, we encouraged that to happen more. And when the tribe regained its recognition status from the federal government, from the United States government in 1989, 6 years after we were there, we suggested that they come to camp. We have a big celebration to celebrate their status of being, recertified as an official tribe in the United States. And there's all kinds of stories within that tribe, but also within the Confederated tribes, which is the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw tribes, Confederated tribes in our area. And both of those tribal family groups had terrible experiences in their history of being shoved off their land, of sometimes murdered, all kinds of unfair, discriminatory kinds of practices, and shipping the kids away to schools where they couldn't have their own language, they couldn't learn their own language, they couldn't do traditional types of religious interaction, sweat lodge ceremonies and things like that were banned, and those kinds of things. So, was a great need for a lot of healing, and we just welcomed that, and we just thought this is a chance for us too to benefit from their gifts, you know. And over the years, our men's retreat, there was like 30 years of when our men's retreat first started, the very first one, we had a Native American sweat lodge from the Native American Church, which is a pan-Indian movement that focuses on traditional spiritual ways of Native American peoples. And at Camp Myrtlewood, we had a sweat lodge service every year with our men's group. And that was amazing how we were able to share our faith perspectives with one another, Native brothers and sisters and
they
guys.
came, representatives came to conduct the sweat lodge.
Yeah, to pour water and that's influenced my life a very large way.
It also became a fairly permanent structure there.
Yeah, well, we always
for a long time.
It was semi-permanent. We rebuilt it probably 5 times over the years. You know, It was a wicker. It was made out of willow frame, and we'd put blankets over the top, and we'd have stones we'd bring in from a fire, and then we would pour water on those stones. And it was a purification rite, the sweat lodge, and the whole idea was that you'd go in there with your trials and tribulations, and when you'd come out, you were like reborn, born again. You could go on, you could get through this, you know, you could release a lot of this concern, this worry. It was something that Native peoples used throughout various Native American cultures and through time, aeons of time, as a way of cleansing themselves both physically and spiritually. Yeah.
John Jones, thank you for being with us in the studio today and sharing your thoughts on Brethren Voices.
Thank you for the opportunity, and blessings from Margaret. I wish she could have been with us today.
And thank you for being with us on Brethren Voices. This is Brent Carlson.
And John Jones, wishing you peace. Pass it on.
There is music in my soul today, a carol to my King. And Jesus, listening, can hear the songs I just can't sing. There's sunshine, blessed sunshine, where the peace